Hey, welcome investors to the 40 Finance channel. My name's Jeff Beers. PayPal reported earnings yesterday, so that was a very big day for me. As some of you know, PayPal has grown recently into my largest stock position, mostly from price appreciation. My cost basis is in the neighborhood of 187. And today, PayPal was trading at about $260 after a little bit of a bump after earnings. So really good news for my portfolio. But as always, when you get through these earnings, man, I mean, you can celebrate for a day or two, but it's usually more important to look ahead to see what is PayPal working on. How are they going to replicate these awesome numbers in 2021? And that's what we're going to do here today. So we'll go through the investor report very quickly and look for some clues for 2021, as well as some recent developments. And I'm going to call out one concerning factor on yesterday's guidance that you should be aware of that could potentially impact the price of PayPal stock going forward. Reminder, as always, that my stock picks and projections are just my opinion for your entertainment. Please make sure you do your own due diligence before investing in any stock. And of course, if you like stock market analysis like this, please subscribe to the 40 Finance channel. Help me out, give this video a like. Thank you to everyone who has supported the channel so far. All right, quick summary of the fourth quarter for PayPal. All of the metrics were great across the board. Active accounts, they gained 16 million new active accounts. That's up 72% from the year before. Customer engagement had a small increase, 40.9 transactions per active account. Payment volume, $277 billion in payments went through PayPal in the fourth quarter. That is about a 40% growth year over year. Revenue of $6 billion, that's up 23%. Non-GAAP EPS was up 29%. And free cash flow of $1 billion, 18% as a percentage of revenue. Okay, the best part about fourth quarter numbers is you get to get the full year numbers. Active accounts, 377 million active accounts, 24% increase on the year. Customer engagement, about the same, 1% increase. Total payment volume, 936 billion, 31% increase on that. Revenue, $21.45 billion. That's a 21% growth year over year. Non-GAAP EPS of $3.88. That's a 31% increase. And finally, free cash flow, $5 billion, 23% as a percentage of revenue. All right, so super positive growth numbers for PayPal across the board. The accounts additions, getting up to 377 million accounts, I think was really key for this platform because it insinuates that you're going to have more users to generate revenue in the future. We do know that PayPal, similar to Square, was one of the key beneficiaries to the new digital transformation that went on with currency during the pandemic. So I think it's safe to say that, PayPal's timeline for growth has actually accelerated quite a bit in 2020. They've definitely saved 2 or 3 years on a slow growth initiative with the pandemic pushing people into digital much faster. So now we're going to look at PayPal's roadmap of what they achieved in 2020 and what we're looking for in 2021. All right, and this is their timeline of 2020 from the investor report. Starts down here, Paycheck Protection Program participation. So they were a lender in that stimulus check direct deposit that they offered. That was something that Square really capitalized on, but it did benefit PayPal as well. QR code checkout was launched in May. I have seen that at CVS in my neck of the woods, but I don't know how big of a thing it is quite yet. Buy now, pay later. In this segment of buy now, pay later, Afterpay is one of the big movers and shakers, but it's good to see PayPal has just taken it upon themselves to do their own branded version of that. I think PayPal has a pretty good brand recognition, so that should pay off over many years. Venmo credit card was just launched in October. They said that it'll be available for most users by, I think, the first half of 2021, so that's good. We know about crypto buy, hold, and sell. That came out in October. It is not fully integrated with Venmo, but that is the next place that it's heading. In November, this didn't get a lot of press, but the Zoom direct transfers. This platform is super helpful in sending cross-border payments. So let's pretend that you work in America, but you're actually from Brazil and you have to send some money back to your family. Zoom can really help with that. I'll show you a quick example that I have fired up here. So this is the Zoom website. So for me to send the equivalent of $200 to Brazil, they would receive 1,035 reals. And the fee for that transaction is only $5. Let's see what happens if I make it 2,000, and then they get over 10,000 real. And if you pay from your bank account or PayPal balance, that fee remains the same. So Zoom, in my opinion, which is XOOM, it's spelled out right here in case you want to look at it, that has a lot of potential, particularly as the world sort of comes out of its shell a little bit from the pandemic. All right, also in November, they launched their giving platform, which is just a way to give to charities, and charities can host on PayPal, so some different options in there. Let's look ahead, though, to some of the initiatives for the future. The Global Pay Later initiative is their way to sort of add pay later to cross-border transactions. And this, again, is a world that's really growing quickly, and you've seen it with Afterpay. So there's a focus on that. They've had some good results in Q4. And the merchant program, you have 250,000 unique merchants in that program. So they are expected to push this more, and I see it as a good thing. We mentioned the digital currency initiatives, buy, hold, sell crypto. It says by the end of November, it was ramped to all of PayPal customers, plans to expand to Venmo and select international markets in H1 21. So that's the first half. And you've got to like that they call out how they'll be accounting for this, because Square's had some problems. Total payment volume will not be recognized for cryptocurrency. Revenue will be recognized on a net basis with transaction revenue. So that whole like pulling the crypto in and adding it to the balance sheet, even though you turn around and sell it, it doesn't look like they're going to be doing that. Which was sort of an accounting problem for Square. It's kind of inflated results that weren't really there. As far as 2021 initiatives in this space, commerce experience to launch later in 2021, cryptocurrency as a funding source to pay at PayPal's 29 million merchants around the globe, no additional integration or fees for merchants. All transactions will be settled with fiat currency. And so this is a big one, right? They are going to allow you to hold Bitcoin, just as an example, in your PayPal account, shop at whatever store, J.Crew or wherever you go, and you can pay with your Bitcoin. The vendor will still receive US dollars if they're in the United States, or if they're in China, they'll receive China currency. So very interesting way that they're playing this, and I think it could be big for the future. All right, finally here on the future, these are some of the companies that are involved in PayPal Ventures, who they have invested in the fintech space. You got a warranty startup, a corporate card and expense management software, cryptocurrency tax software, blockchain infrastructure, European open banking platform, payments as a service, a host of Black and Latino-led venture capital funds. You've got Even, which is signed PayPal as a customer, bringing early wage access to PayPal employees. So think about the check cashing things that you see in the city. even as a way to do that digitally, likely with lesser fees than you would see in a retail station. Happy Returns helps with e-commerce returns. And then Acorns, something with ZipRecruiter to launch first of its kind job portal. Not exactly sure how those two relate, but it's on here. All right, this is the PayPal Generosity Network, which is the giving platform. If you think about the rise in like GoFundMe and the obvious necessitation for charities to get on some sort of digital payment network, PayPal is working with them in that way. And this is important, not necessarily because it drives the bottom line, but the sort of good karma, good customer experience that goes in with this. I think it was a smart move. Okay, so from my perspective, PayPal has some pretty interesting things still in the pipeline, stuff that we've even heard about already, such as crypto, buy now, pay later, Zoom. All those items that were officially launched in 2020 still haven't had a full year. So a sort of subtle shot in the arm for 2021 is growing some of these new initiatives into full-fledged bottom line participants, right? Taking Zoom and advertising it more, getting it into people's hands to use so that it can actually drive more growth in the future. Same with crypto payments. And then you had the venture capitalist fund, all those names you saw in there, trying to figure out which one of them can really drive returns for PayPal in the future. I would say for a company as big as PayPal, they've done a pretty good job at keeping the pedal to the metal on pushing for new initiatives and keeping their pulse on the small fintech world to see who they can get involved in case an idea really comes up big. Now let's take a look at their 2021 guidance to see what PayPal executives think is going to happen from a top and bottom line perspective. All right, so the hardest part about having an awesome 2020 is trying to replicate it in 2021. And I think mostly PayPal has some good numbers here, but I do want to call out one concerning part that you should be aware of. So right off the bat, you can see we've got a revenue growth story of about 19%, at least from the vantage point that we have in February. EPS growth of about 17% for non-GAAP. And this is where it gets a little weird because the GAAP EPS, they're expecting to come in at 320. And the only reason that's concerning is because in 2020, the GAAP EPS was 354. So as they comment here, expect non-GAAP EPS growth of 17% and GAAP EPS of 320 compared to 354 in fiscal year 2020, which benefited from $1.24 in net gains on strategic investments. That will look like a negative next year to this 354 they just posted, but as they've noted, they benefited from $1.24 in EPS from strategic investments. Usually what that means is it's probably part of that venture capital arm where they've invested in XYZ companies and the shares or the returns on those companies did extraordinarily well. And for whatever reason, they had to accept the profits for those investments in 2020. And because of that, it ended up and landed on the bottom line of $1.24. So in reality, if you take this $1.24 out from 354, right, you have what, 230? A GAAP EPS of $2.30 without the strategic investments. Next year, they're going to 320. So they're technically adding to the normal EPS, but you had a one-time benefit here in 2020. All right, taking a look at the stock price today, $265, coming off of a 5% bump from yesterday's earnings announcement. You can see the one-year chart here. A year ago, this time, you could buy PayPal for about $122. I got in somewhere over here in July and August, and I'm managing a cost basis of around 187, I believe, off the top of my head. P ratio today stated at 99.66 on Yahoo. However, we know now that the EPS is going to land at 350 whenever they do update this. So if you take 265 into 350, I have a little calculator here, it ends up about a P ratio of 75. When this gets updated to 350, you'll see PayPal's numbers conceivably come down at the end of 2021 because it'll go from 12-month EPS of 350 to their guidance number of 320. I think the guidance number goes up, but at the end of the day, how high does it go up? Let's just assume this EPS is going to stay flat for another 12 months at 350. All right, so that is one thing I wanted to call out on PayPal here, is the EPS, when it does get updated in most people's financial websites, it does have a potential to stay kind of static for the next 12 months. And depending on the projections and how hot the market is running, that could lead to a flat line on their stock price for people who are doing it from a fundamental perspective. Now, the good news about the market right now is nobody's doing fundamental perspectives. So perhaps PayPal continues to grow closer to that 300 number. Just keep in mind, though, if you're not in the stock yet, I would definitely wait for a market pullback because I think you're going to see a flat line start to build on this one over the next few months. From my perspective, I'm happy as clams because I got in the 180s, and this is a long-term stock that I have no intention of selling. You know, I made a nice little gain on it, and if those are the only gains that I make in the next 6 to 9 months, then that's fine. I'm riding with PayPal for 5+ years. You saw the chart on sort of the fintech innovation strategy and all the different partners they have. So I'm a firm believer of the case. I don't think you can go wrong in fintech, so I have no intentions to sell right now. All right, guys, so that's the post PayPal earnings assessment. Phenomenal year by PayPal. And even though we see some potential flatness in EPS in 2021, keep in mind that they're always innovating. And this game changes really fast. And if you saw some upside from Venmo last year, you can expect Venmo to continue cranking this year. We didn't talk about it much in this particular video, but keep in mind that they have a full year now of people, you know, depositing stimulus checks, tax returns, all those things, just like Square. So I expect that activity to be very strong in Q1 and Q2. And just maybe PayPal comes out with the surprise earnings as the year goes on. Maybe they get to $3.75 or $4 in 2021. And that, of course, will move the stock higher. All right, as always, thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, give this video a like. We'll see you on the next video.